Welcome back to Resolve Reptiles. I wanted to make a quick video to clarify something that I would say I was wrong about. However, I will also explain why I originally said that. It's still something that, I would say, is let's say, literally or technically incorrect. However, I would say that it is not incorrect. I'm not saying that I wasn't wrong, but the statement itself, I would say, is not completely inaccurate. Specifically, there's a lot of talk about fluorescent lamps. Arcadia had their whole thing where they supposedly innovated things by putting a dimmer on a fluorescent lamp, which has been done for quite a while. I don't know, whatever they're doing. Now, of course, the idea of a dimmable T5 doesn't really make any sense anyway, but we'll leave it to Arcadia to market the crap out of that. As part of that video, what they said was that all of Arcadia lamps are completely recyclable. What I had said was that the phosphors were not recycled or could not be recycled. Now that, it turns out, is not completely true. Somebody on science social media, because of course it wouldn't be a reptile social media because reptile keepers don't know even how to dispose of the lamps, much less what is reclaimed from the lamp. But so somebody on one of the science discords who said that they didn't want a shout out or anything like that, they showed me some different places that were actually trying to recover some of the materials from phosphors. In the process of looking into that, what I found out was that there are companies, so Clean Earth is one company that goes and tries to recycle as much as they can. So they do have a fluorescent lamp processing plant, and there is a YouTube video by somebody named JerryRigEverything who goes through and walks through all the steps. Now, at the moment, I have it paused on this container of hazardous wastes. So in case I can't find it again, remember this specific one at 429. This video goes through, and I definitely encourage you to go watch this guy's video. I'm not going to play it as a part of my video. You should definitely go watch it. But you can see that they've got LEDs, compact fluorescents, they've got tubes, the electrodes, all of that good stuff. So that the aluminum can be recycled, the glass can be recycled, the phosphors for the powder are actually collected, and the argon gas, that's right, there's only one gas in fluorescent lamps, just argon gas. I know John Courtney Smith mentioned noble gases and tried to make it super complex. It's just argon. Most of a fluorescent lamp is actually a vacuum. So very little argon gas, very little mercury. However, mercury is the most dangerous thing that we are concerned with these lamps. The video itself goes over that they separate all this stuff out, and then we're here back on this hazardous waste container. Now, I assumed based on what I was told by household hazardous waste that they crushed the bulbs, that they couldn't recycle the bulb completely, and that different things that are saying that we should move away from fluorescent lamps because the bulb can't be completely recycled, and there are very few places recycling these bulbs, etc. That the phosphors were collected and dumped into a landfill, just like I mentioned with the way that the household hazardous waste here handles fluorescent bulbs by crushing them, sticking them in a container, and throwing them at a landfill. Now, this specific video, I'll let you see. So that says hazardous waste. Anyway, go watch the video yourself. It's important you see this anyway as a reptile keeper. So this barrel actually says hazardous waste. I don't know if it's put in a hazardous waste barrel by this company and then shipped somewhere else to be reclaimed by other machines. I don't know if it ends up in a landfill. My assumption was that it ended up at a landfill. So there's a paper out there that is titled A Critical Review of End-of-Life Fluorescent Lamps Recycling for Recovery of Rare Earth Values. That's quite a mouthful, but basically it's how do we recycle fluorescent lamps. That is going to be linked below, so you can follow along if you want. The abstract itself is going to repeat a lot of the stuff that I already repeat, that these bulbs are hazardous waste. But the idea of being able to reclaim some of these materials, according to this paper, is going to be something that is advancing. This, of course, was published in 2022. So when they say advancing, they don't mean that we are already here. There may be some specialized facilities, such as the one that I've already mentioned, like Clean Earth here, Clean Earth Incorporated. However, I'm not sure exactly if they're able to reclaim the phosphor powder or not. The various substances inside of the phosphor powder, of course, are toxic, and they do discuss, how a fluorescent lamp is created, what the contents of a fluorescent lamp are, and then, their usage throughout some countries. Fluorescent lamps are a big topic. These things have been in use since, just after like World War II. There are so many of these things out there that are full of mercury, contaminating our groundwater, etc., and you'll see that the article kind of reflects some of that as well. But basically, this does say that we are going to be able to reclaim some of the materials that are used in these phosphorus powers, that is not impossible. Now, part of recycling is to remember that we can recycle almost anything. However, the effort put into recycling, that is the cost put into recycling, may not match, you know, any of the target profits or anything like that. And now, of course, you may say, oh, well, you know, a recycling company should be trying to make profit. That's not what I mean. What I mean is that the value that we get out of the end results may not match the effort put into the actual recycling. So that's where we get into a little bit of trouble. That's where, as I mentioned, I contacted my household hazardous waste. I, you know, contacted some other places, and the ultimate effort that was put into disposing these lamps was very small. That, of course, to me suggests that, you know, reclaiming some of this stuff may not be something that is very profitable, and so a company that is dedicated to something like this may not be able to sustain themselves by recycling these bulbs. Again, definitely go check out the video by JerryRigEverything over here as he walks through the entire factory, and they discuss, you know, how factories like this are able to reclaim this material and the value of the material that they do reclaim. Match that up with, you know, some of the information that you might even go get from a source of Wikipedia to tell you how this 100-year-old technology works. And then, of course, cross-check that with the material that I'll provide that talk about actually reclaiming things from the phosphor powders. But basically, TLDR is that when I said that the phosphors cannot be recycled, what I should have said, and what would have been more correct and not wrong, is that the phosphors are unlikely to be recycled. In fact, the bulbs in your area are unlikely to be recycled. Just based on my experience from contacting my household hazardous waste and looking into some other cities and what they do with hazardous waste, there is a high possibility that these lamps are simply being crushed. There is also a high possibility that the average person in the reptile hobby are not actually taking these to hazardous waste disposal facilities and are just dumping them into their garbage can, where they end up inside of a landfill, seeping mercury into the ground, killing what remains of the endangered hognose snakes here in Illinois. The reptile hobby must move away from fluorescent lamps. Instead of dumping money into dimmable T5s and trying to get everybody on this fluorescent lamp bandwagon and calling LEDs a failed technology, Arcadia needs to kind of buckle up and embrace the modern world. We need to put money into things like UV LEDs. We need to put money into more efficient heating. We need to stop using things like the tungsten-based halogen lamps and various other lamps that Arcadia offers that are also hazardous and completely inefficient. We need to focus on things that are a little bit more efficient. Instead of using resistive heat panels and things like that, maybe we look into some of the other heating methods that are used across industries that are not just reptiles. Being able to innovate the reptile hobby is kind of like saying, you know, I've managed to innovate dirt by adding a little bit more sand to it. What we need is, instead of just adding a little bit of sand to the dirt that we already have, is somebody to come by and actually build us a foundation that is not only something that is sustainable, that aligns with the conservation goals that people keep, you know, they promote. They want, you know, conservation. Part of conservation is not dumping mercury and all of these toxic phosphors into a landfill or crushing the bulbs or ending up in a trash can. And then, of course, they need to align with modern science. Arcadia is extremely behind. They are one of the companies that purport to be ahead of everybody else, but really all of their stuff is just reboxed from some other purpose. This is not super ideal. Getting a company to get a foothold into places that Arcadia is in, and also ZoomEd and you know, all these other places, getting a foothold into that area is very difficult. Arcadia, as you all should know, is very in bed with PetSmart, or however you want to say it. So the profits that they get from something that's more popular, like Arcadia Aquariums, of course, trickles over to John Courtney Smith and his Arcadia Reptile. Arcadia Reptile does have agreements with PetSmart to rebox their bulbs. So once again, on the whole like tangent of ethical and all that other good stuff, PetSmart isn't it. And then the amount of waste that would come from something like, you know, especially hazardous waste that would come from something like the reptile aisle of a PetSmart is not something that, you know, we should be super proud of. All of these things considered, as I mentioned, I do want to state that the phosphor dust can be recycled. However, it is extremely unlikely that either reptile keepers are actually disposing of these bulbs correctly, that they're disposing of these bulbs in an undamaged nature so that the facilities can reclaim this stuff, and that they're actually getting it to an appropriate facility. Some of these facilities cost between $2 and $8 to recycle one of these bulbs. And so far, I haven't heard that Arcadia has an agreement with a recycler, and I haven't heard of any programs where Arcadia will take back your fluorescent lamps after the 6 months or whatever lifespan that Arcadia bulbs are supposed to have. So ultimately, you know, Arcadia can say the bulbs are recyclable, but they're making absolutely no effort to instruct people how to recycle these or to offer any programs to help somebody recycle these or to prevent them from ending up in a landfill. This and many other reasons are why many industries, not just the reptile hobby, but industries across the world are getting rid of these lamps for being inefficient, being hazardous, being difficult to manage the logistics behind, and why things like LEDs are the actual present. I'm not going to say the future because they are the present. This is where we are today. The reptile hobby is just 10 to 15 years behind, as it usually is.